Then in paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria, what is the defect in them? There is a stem cell defect and there is a decay accelerating factor which is deficient. So what will flow cytometry will do? Flow cytometry will detect that glycoprotein CD55, which is also called decay accelerating factor, and the deficiency of the CD55, demonstration of it by flow cytometry is considered to be the gold standard in the diagnosis of paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria, is what need to be remembered. In nulliparous women, I think we are all in consensus about combined OCPs, which are the better choice. Anybody would like to say IUCDs? There is nothing against IUCDs, but preferably combined oral contraceptives, whereas mini pill, they have their own specific indications for using the mini pill. Then Sims amputation, where you don't do. Sims was a great man, he was a surgery professor, luckily with good residents. So he has done a very good amputation technique, which is still the gold standard now. But we must know that what are the indications and contraindications before you contemplate a Sims amputation. Now while you are doing this 4-foot amputation of Sims, one of the important thing is you will be raising a big posterior flap. So for that posterior flap to survive, a good blood supply should be there. Anything that compromises the blood supply, like a diabetic peripheral vascular disease, which becomes a contraindication for doing the Sims, because post amputation it won't heal well, the Sims. So there is a reason the diabetic ulcer foot with a gangrene means already there is a peripheral vascular disease of the diabetes. So there is a reason that stands as a contraindication. But otherwise soft tissue sarcoma, squamous cell carcinoma, Madura foot, in all these scenarios basically we very much do the Sims amputation. Now why do you see diabetic ulcer? How many say ischemia? Rather than, both of them are good, but 84% of patients, it is the peripheral neuropathy which is being found if they are also having diabetic ulcer. So it is considered to be more important than ischemia in leading to the development of the diabetic ulcer, is what I want to underscore. If there is a gasless abdomen, what does it mean? There is an esophageal atresia, agreed. Then esophageal atresia can have a fistulous tract in relation with trachea, tracheoesophageal fistula we call. And this can be of two types, proximal and distal fistula. So if there is no gas in the abdomen, it means only two things. Either it is a pure esophageal atresia or esophageal atresia with a proximal fistula but not distal fistula. But option A and B, both of them are there in the questions. Good, good. So good, one more Janta answer. We get examiner should be agreeing to give the correct to all the people. A and B should be given ideally. Is there any way to check your key in the exam hall to contest? You don't want to do nowadays because honestly it will delay the counseling and joining. Already elections are coming up, so we don't want to do that. Okay. So you need to know, doctor, that esophageal atresia, this is how you see a gasless abdomen. There is no gas shadow in the abdomen at all. And if you pass the nasogastric tube, it will be coiling because of the esophageal atresia. They are the two important imaging findings. Hydrostatic reduction with a water soluble contrast is what we do with the case of the intussusception, all of you know. Bleeding per rectum most commonly is because of juvenile colorectal polyps. They don't have any malignant tendency, is what need to be remembered. In cystic fibrosis, we find the meconium ileus, which is one of the early clinical presenting feature of the cystic fibrosis. Melanese synergistic gangrene typically involves any abdominal surgery. Abdominal wall is the common place where it basically begins, is what need to be remembered. It is slowly progressive, superficial necrotizing, and hypoxic wound environment is a predisposing factor for it. Furning of the cervical mucus is because of the salt. Sodium chloride is what need to be remembered. Now this question I really didn't understand the frame of the question. We'll have a discussion at the end on this question. Now torticollis, what will happen to the neck, head and the chin? We must be very sure about. The head will be tilting towards the side of the torticollis and the chin will be rotating towards the opposite direction. Then another thing is, How do you differentiate congenital torticollis from that of the acquired torticollis? If there is a facial asymmetry, it is more likely to favor a congenital torticollis, facial asymmetry concomitantly. So that is the reason we find facial asymmetry is a true statement, and neck is tilted to the same side and the chin towards the opposite side, so chin becomes the answer except about it, and we need to do the surgical management for the torticollis a significant number of times. Now hepatitis B, hepatocellular carcinoma, it is the HSV2 not 1 which is implicated in the carcinoma cervix, that is the reason it becomes the answer. So direct mail sending, what is that called as? Kakito kaburu. So is a, what kind of communication it is? All the old movies we used to have, that why did you come all the way? You must have sent a messenger by crow. So what does it mean? You don't want that fellow to come to your home indirectly. So it is what kind of communication? It is basically called as an individual or mass. It's parked. Okay. I think our friends are very sure on their answer, mass. I am not sure about the answer, what we should call it as, but mass. But mass is generally pick up a microphone like this and then talk, whether others permit or not. One of that is direct mailing, not emailing. Right, good. So now let's go to the next question. Glomeruloendothelitis in pregnancy we see in the case of the preeclampsia, as all of you know. Now let us talk about aberrant renal vessels. Why you want to remember or know about them as a urologist? Because if you happen to injure without knowing their anatomy, then the kidney can suffer ischemia. So that is the reason division of a renal artery which is aberrant can lead to infarction of that supplying area is a true statement. Then generally renal vein injury does not lead to much of a damage. I am not sure about whether 2 will be there, 3 of renal aberrant arteries are there, is the correct option. And we have one missing option among the option 4. Anybody could recall that? Generally we don't recall tough questions, right? So I am not sure what was there in the option 4. But anyway, some of your future interventional radiologists, there are 2 kidneys, doctor, and here you have the regular renal artery and there is one aberrant renal artery arising here. So now the question is, I still feel possibly A can be the answer, that 2 renal aberrant arteries with right kidney, generally if you take left versus right, a aberrant renal artery is more often found on the left kidney rather than towards the right kidney. Okay, but you may curse me that the radiograph I am showing is a right renal aberrant artery. That most of the times it happens like that. So, but is it 2 or 3? I am not sure about the numbers. Now let's go to the next question. In laryngotracheobronchitis we see the steeple sign. Okay, what do you mean by steeple, doctor? Anybody can tell me what is a steeple? Church, eh? Oh, very good. At least you are more well educated, convent brought up. I studied in Telugu medium. I was thinking what is the steeple is all about. Steeple is all the church where there is a narrowing towards a tapering end towards the top. So we need to know that normally this is a AP radiograph of the upper airway, but if there is any crude laryngotracheobronchitis, there is a narrowing and tapering which is basically called steeple sign. Then where do you find thumb sign, doctor? Epiglottitis, very good. So this is another example of a steeple sign is what you are able to see here. Now the thumb sign is that enlarged epiglottis typically will lead to a thumb-like appearance is what need to be remembered. Then dysphagia plica ventricularis, when somebody uses excess muscle tension on the vocal cords, that lead to the hypertrophy of the false vocal cords. At a point of time, finally false vocal cords produce the sound which is basically called the dysphagia plica ventricularis is what need to be remembered. Now is it the maxillary or ethmoid which is more common sinusitis in children? Adults it is maxillary, but in ethmoid generally not in adults, it is more in children. But the overall incidence if you take between ethmoid and maxillary, what is more in pediatric? Ethmoid, good. Now growth disturbance is seen in fact in all the 3. Osteopetrosis, achondroplasia, rickets, what was the 4th option? Huh? Diaphasial, achalasia. But these three it is definitely found. So maybe that fourth one is the, even that lead to no, right? Okay. So, but osteopetrosis growth disturbance is definitely found, and in osteopetrosis you have two types: autosomal recessive form, which appears early part of the life, and dominant little later in adolescence. So, but overall there is a growth disturbance because examiner didn't commit whether it is recessive or a dominant type. Assume that recessive, then growth retardation is very much found.